Hello, welcome to the next episode of Sable's Grimoire. Okay, we just got done talking to Draken. She was asking about humans as a whole and whatnot. Wants to be taken to the city. We'll see if that ends up actually going anywhere. It's still too early to head to class. Can't afford to get sucked in by the allure of the library, so I decide to study in my room until it is time for class. Man, why am I so tired this morning? Maybe I should stop pulling all-nighters. I slept even less than usual last night. Even though I went to bed early, I woke up a short time later and wound up visiting the library intent on making up for time I lost on my first day and the time spent socializing instead of studying. Suffice to say, my choice is now catching up with me. Bad Sable, don't fall asleep. A bit more studying, then I'll go to class, like a good student. If I fall asleep in class, I'll make sure to. Oh, I feel my mind drifting off, my eyes suddenly open once more. My room is bright, my body feels light, yet I sense that very little time has passed. I've been woken up unnaturally by something or rather, someone. Oh yeah, a dream demon. Good morning, sleepyhead. You must have been running yourself ragged to fall under my spell so easily. The moment those words leave Eris's mouth, I realize my misunderstanding. I've not woken up, rather I've been put to sleep, and my dream has been invaded by my teacher. Everybody knows that succubi and incubi can infiltrate the dreams of others, but I never thought I'd experience this myself. Is Eris here to suck out my life force, like the stories say, or is she just abusing her power in order to speak to me privately? Either way, so this is the power of a succubus, huh? Amazing. Looks like it just feels like the real world. Of course it does. While we succubi may not be the most powerful demi-humans, this is one area in which we will never lose. I'm sure you won't. Hell's illusions are impressive. This is on an entirely different level. Just how much of the real world have you recreated in here? If I were to start running around outside, would I suddenly hit an invisible wall? Fall off the edge of the world? Fall off the what? This is a perfect reconstruction of the real world. That includes gravity, air, and everything else. Don't be falling off something imaginary. Persist, blah blah blah. Is that complex, huh? What about places you've never visited? Could I fly to another country, even if neither one of us has been there in real life? I don't know. Never actually. Let's find out. Those wings aren't just for show, right? I have wings myself for the aether capacity to sustain flight magic. At least nullify my weight. You fly, and I'll levitate while holding onto your tail. How does that sound? How does that sound? How does becoming a mode of transportation sound? I wouldn't put it quite like that. Think of it as a student and teacher bonding exercise. Enough already. I didn't come here for the sake of engaging in pointless banter. Forgive my forcefulness, but I believe this is to be necessary. I can ask Eris to elaborate. My body betrays her intent. Clearly. My vocal cords are frozen, as are my hands, mouth, and even my eyelids. Being in possession of free will, usually be capable of. At Eris's command, I have completely lost control of my own body. Heed my words, child. I am your teacher, you are my student. Not only that, but I am a succubus, and you are a mere human being. I am, in every way, your superior. And as the one who is inferior to me, you have no choice but to obey my every command. Do you understand? Yes, I understand. Good, very good. My body begins to move once more. Rather than feel relieved by this development, the movement of my own body strikes momentarily fear to my heart. Even though it's undoubtedly my own body, I am not the one controlling it. Now then, Sable, be a good student and answer your teacher's questions honestly, okay? First off, explain to me what happened in class yesterday. How did you discover a spell like that? You didn't really create it yourself, did you? Hmm? Break, resist, or answer. I'm just gonna answer. Like, she already knows the truth, so if this is what she's looking for, I don't care. She may not believe me, given that she'd go this far just to ask me the same exact question yet again, but even so, with Eris's permission, my mouth begins to move. Yes? I didn't. You didn't what? I didn't lie. I created that spell all on my own. Possible. Even under my spell, you still lied to me. I'm not lying, I really did. Shut up. I can believe that a mere human could come up with something like that. Shit, how is this possible? I should have complete control in here. Unless... Eris opens her eyes wide and stares at me in amazement. You aren't human after all, are you? I am human. I can't believe a single word you say. You've been outed, Sable. I know that you aren't human. I am... Liar. There's no way a human could lie to me in my own domain, is it? A third party intervened? Before Eris could jump to yet another hasty conclusion, her one-sided rant is interrupted by a familiar voice. Even though I can see the interloper, Eris's body movement tells me that there is someone near the entrance of my fake dream dorm room. You should have known. You've been teaching this child forbidden arts, haven't you? Forbidden arts, you say? Teaching those to a child would be problematic. Raphael. Fortunately, that is not the case here. Even if I knew such techniques, I would never be so irresponsible as to teach them to a human being. Expect me to believe that? Honestly, I don't care what you believe. The beliefs of a filthy succubus mean even less to me than the life of one. You spiteful, hate-filled little... Showing off even worse chemistry than they displayed when Raphael visited my class. Two teachers fight a small war of words, as they seem to forgot that a student is present. Realizing that, I quickly seized this opportunity presented to me. With Eris's focus directed elsewhere, her control over me has waned. I still can't move my arms or legs, but I can turn my head and close my eyes. Okay, Sable, you can do this. Eris's control here isn't flawless. If it was, I wouldn't be able to move at all. Raphael would not have been able to invade her realm. So Raphael distracts her. Eros, if you weren't always so suspicious of other people, I think you'd be much happier. Like now, for example, rather than admit your mistake, you seem innate on putting words in the mouth of your student and branding him a liar. Isn't that malice, defense, accusatory nature of yours making this entire confrontation far more difficult than it needs to be? Oh, spare me. The last thing I need right now is a lecture from some shitty angel. What the hell are you even doing here? Can't you see that I'm having a private discussion with one of my students? It didn't seem like that much of a discussion to me. You bound that poor child with your lewd, invasive techniques and forced him to do your bidding. Doesn't that sound more like the behavior of a rapist than a teacher? Oh my god. What the hell are you talking about? What part of this is lewd in any way? Presence, of course. Just because I'm a succubus, that doesn't mean everything I do is somehow sexual. Really? That doesn't sound right to me. In fact, it was news of your sexual exploits that tipped me off to this little discussion of yours. Just a bit more after I'll keep her talking a little while longer. I've just about figured out how to use this technique of Eris's works. All that's left is to actually break free and regain control over my dream. Freeing myself of Eris's control, the two teachers continue to bicker. What news? You'd better not be spreading rumors about me again. Me spreading rumors? Heaven forbid. What brought me here today was a particular event which many students have expressed concern about. As I recall, they said that filthy Eros dragged someone out of the class, locked them away in her sex dungeon, and made them into her personal meat doll. After hearing such a terrible rumor, it'd be irresponsible of me not to come and see for myself, don't you agree? Meat doll? Sex dungeon? You out of your friggin' mind? Who the hell would believe such a vile rumor? Every single first-year student who I spoke to. Oh, and the second-year students who overheard the first year's gossiping. It's over. My life at this academy is over. There's no way that I'll still have a place here anymore. Oh, Eros, don't be so dramatic. You haven't lost your place at Andromeda. You never had one from the beginning. Oh, that's fucked up. I did it. I'm free. First talent, now Eros. Yeah, Eris. Freaking genius at breaking illusions. Now, if only I could figure out how to dispel the illusion, which protects the underground facilities. Allowing myself to relieve in self-satisfaction only for a moment, I look around at the room at those present. Despite my outburst, Eris's eyes are fixed on the floor, and Raphael is glaring at her with a malice gaze contrary to her parents. Whatever happened between those two while I was concentrating on breaking Eris's illusion, Eris seems to have suffered for it. You hear that, Eros? Even children can break through your illusions. So much for this landed mind control succubi. Casting me only a fleeting sideways glance, Raphael disappears in the thin air. She seems to have fulfilled her goal, whatever that was, and no longer has any reason to stay in my dream. I knew succubi and incubi could enter the minds of others through their dreams, but I never heard of angels doing so before. That's true, isn't it? It's kind of weird. That is, assuming Raphael is actually an angel. Demi-humans who are high in number or who have integrated well into human society, genuinely quite well known, and learning about them is as simple as visiting a library. Some species, however, remain a mystery, either because they are near extinction or because they are too wary of mankind to share information. Honestly, I have no idea which category angels fall into. They're similar to dragons in that they are rare to the point of being considered fables, yet there are mountains of records about them, all of which are inconsistent and contradictory. In this case, having too many unreliable witness accounts of angels has led us to not knowing the single thing we've heard about them is actually true. So, are we done here? Even if you don't believe me, I've answered you honestly, and I'm not going to fall for your tricks a second time. We're both supposed to be heading class right now, so if you don't mind. Without saying a word, Eris, just like Raphael before her, vanishes into thin air. Seeing that, I breathe a sigh of relief and lay back down on my imaginary bed. My bluff about her magic not having an effect on me anymore worked. Because if Eros does try this again, I really don't have any confidence that I'd be able to repel her all by myself. I like to think that Eris simply chose to believe the honest answer I gave to her question, but somehow I doubt that's the case. Choosing to give the matter no further thought, I close my eyes and attempt to go to sleep for real. I have no idea if my gesture will actually work. I've never had my dreams hijacked before, nor have I ever researched succubi in depth, so I don't know if falling asleep in here will cause me to awaken in the real world. Fortunately, my concerns are unfounded. The moment I close my eyes, my mind begins to drift away. Darkness fills my vision. Eris's fake world crumbles, and before I know it, I've returned to the real world once more. By the time I've awoken from my slumber, night has already fallen. Just as Eris warned, the flow of time in the real world has proven to differ greatly to that of my dream. So didn't we just have breakfast with Draken? And now it's nighttime? Rather, the time in the real world slowing down. However, it seems to have accelerated instead. In the few minutes I spent with Eris, I have managed to sleep through all of my classes and meals for the entire day. And I'm really making a habit out of this, aren't I? Going to sleep during the day, missing classes, waking up in the middle of the night. Maybe we should be friends, some nocturnal demi-humans. Careful not to make too much noise in the dormitory, I head downstairs and walk to the academy library. Even at this time of night, the library is illuminated and still open to students alike. Just when I was thinking I should fix my sleeping habits and stop pulling all-nighters, here I am once again. Oh well, at least this time I'm well rested. I have to be able to get plenty done tonight. The question now is, how do I want to kill the next 8 hours? I stroll through the library while glancing at books of every selection. There are a few which catch my eye, but nothing that I feel could eat an entire night away. Perhaps I should start on the principal's book. Shaw did mention that her father and Bartholomew was it. She said something about how they were responsible for strengthening the ties between our races. If I'm going to keep attending his academy and conversing with his daughter, I could certainly stand to learn a bit more about the man. open my terminal and begin to search for any books recounting the history between the principal and his human ally Bartholomew. My first attempt, I searched the name Bartholomew, and moments later a single item pops up on my screen. The history of man and elf, huh? That sounds about right. Let's see what all the fuss is about, shall we? Okay. The book begins with personal accounts of a particular elven village. The name and locations are withheld, but the description are valuable, and there are a few images available as attachments. So I don't care too much about backstory stuff, building the world. But I do like that because it just shows how big this world is, or like thought about in a way. Despite the secrecy, which has historically surrounded elven culture, the book spares no detail in portraying the daily lives and tribulations of full-blooded elves. Come to think of it, I wonder if there are any scenescapes that were created within elven villages. I've never seen any before, but surely at least one exists. The book goes on to recount a moment which many consider to be the turning point of the relationship between humans and elves. A young man, a human, stumbles upon the elven village, injured and frightened. He's a mage, living in an era of witch hunting, and he is fleeing armed pursuers. The elves, most of whom have never seen a human being before, are at a loss. They don't understand the young man's words. Do they have any idea what to do with him? So they take him to their leader, the only elf in the village capable of speaking any human languages. It's at this point in the book that the author admits to being the very leader he is writing about. He doesn't call himself by name, but going by LaShaw's account, I suppose that would mean N is the author of this book. That would also make the fleeing mage Bartholomew, and the village must be LaShaw's old home. Why is it old home? She's just at the school, that doesn't make her old home. Unless she moved and I forgot about it. The elves, though uncertain about the young man, trust in their leader's judgment and allow him to stay in the village. For the next few days, the young man's wounds are treated, and he is taught about life in their village. Before he can grow too complacent, however, witch hunters finally catch up. They track his bloody footprints to the elven village and waste no time before breaching its borders. Without regard of the occupants of the village, the hunters call out to the young man, brandishing sword and spear as they threaten violence. They tell the villagers who don't speak a word of human tongue that they want the head of staying with them, and that if they don't comply, their village will be burned to the ground. The young man, thankful for the treatment of the village despite their fear of him, steps forward. He can't allow these poor elves to suffer for his supposed sin. If his head is the only one they want, then so be it. But before he can face his pursuers, the young man feels something clasp his shoulder. He turns around to find the village leader smiling at him, and listen to the elf's surprising fluent English one more time. Worry not, son of man. We elves may cherish peace, but we are by no means weak. In this village, those men are not hunters, they are prey. What follows is a scene of carnage, as the village leader tells his friends and family that the hunters are their enemy. Before he can even finish telling them how the hunters threatened to burn down their village, the elves have rattled their spells. Without hesitation or remorse, the elves unleash wave after wave of small-scale destructive magic. Arrows of ice, whip-like vines, even plain old arrows launched by those untrained in magic. All manners of hell rains down upon the hunters, and before they can even blink, the massacre is ended. I take a break from reading as I finish off what appears to be the first chapter of the principal's book. See, that was nice, because I thought it was going to do the entire book in one go, so it's nice that it only did a chapter. I know there was a choice earlier in the game to read the book, so I bet it gives you a bunch of choices to read it off and on. So that's how the principal and Bartholomew met. I may have only just scratched the surface of the principal's book, but it's a decent read so far. Even knowing that they both survive, I can't help but wonder what will happen to Anne and Bartholomew next. After taking a few moments to reflect on what I've just read, I prepare to open the next chapter. The moment I do so, however, I notice quiet footsteps approaching me from behind. I turn to face the source of the sound. It's no great surprise. A familiar face is waiting for me. Good morning, Drew. Or good evening. Yeah, good morning. And to you, Sable. What are you doing here so late at night? Another all-nighter. After spending last night in the library, I've given Drew the impression that I spend many sleepless nights studying instead of resting. While my circumstances are a tad different this time, the essence of what she says is still correct. Something like that. Slept for most of the day, so now I'm wide awake. I can relate to that. Because you're a spider? I'm not a spider. You shouldn't assume that every trait a demi-human possesses stems from their race. I'm sorry. Honestly, Sable, I'll forgive you this time, but you need to realize that not everyone will be so understanding. Even as she scolds me, Drew wears a smile on her face, or at least I assume that she's smiling behind that mask of hers. She knows I don't mean any harm by my remarks, and for a mature, respectable senior of the prestigious academy, getting mad over something like this would be unsightly. As such, Drew quickly casts aside her displeasure and moves on. So, you're reading up on the history of the principal and Bartholomew, I see. Hmm? Followed your line of sight only to realize that my terminal is still open. I'm sorry. I know it's impolite to look over someone's shoulder at their terminal. When I saw you reading so intently, it got me curious about what you were doing. Oh, don't worry about it. It's fine. I'm a classmate of the principal's daughter, and I've been summoned to his office a couple of times already. So I thought I'd take this opportunity to learn more about him. Time well spent, I assure you. The principal is a wonderful man. You know him well, Jerome. I wouldn't claim to know him as well as his daughter must, but we have certainly crossed paths. By the time a student reaches their third year at the academy, it would be more strange for them to not know the principal. And of course, as the hero who built the foundation for human and demi-human relations, his reputation naturally precedes him. Right. I heard something like that. I'm not far enough through his book to know anything more than that, though. I apologize in advance for the spoiler, but the history of man and elf doesn't cover that topic in depth. If you want to learn more about the principal's exploits, you need to ask him yourself. Really? It can't be right. Surely there's some other source information about the principal. You said yourself that he has quite the reputation for building up human and demi-human relations. How could he be so well known, yet only have one book written about him? That's a bit of a tricky subject. How is it tricky? Literature about him either exists or doesn't. It should be simple to research more about him. Please don't blame the messenger, Sable. The principal has had many newspapers, articles, reports written about him in that sense. There's plenty of information publicly available. However, trailing through the single paragraph newspaper clippings spanned several decades isn't a simple task. When I think back over what I know about the principal, Drew's words make sense. His story began over 100 years ago. It was the time when information wasn't as ubiquitous or carefully logged as it is now. Furthermore, all the humans of that time period are dead, and most of the elves in the village don't, and presumably still don't, speak human tongue. Unfortunately, that leaves us with records pertaining solely to recent events, and even then, most of the principal's work would be under the flag of Andromeda, not himself personally. What a pain. Principal is a hard man to figure out. He's no more difficult than any other person. Most people don't have articles or books written about them. If you want to learn about them, you need to ask them directly, or ask the people close to them. That sounds tiring. I'd rather just read his autobiography. You would rather read someone's entire life story than talk to them. You're a strange person, Sable. I shrugged complacently. I don't particularly dislike talking to people. In fact, some demi-humans are far more interesting to me face to face. But people tend to be unreliable sources of information, and they relate little on about unrelated topics at every chance they get. At least with books, I can search for relative information, skip over anything I don't care about. It's rather, pragmatic, not impersonal. There's the girl who hides herself away in the library. I'm not hiding in here, I just find books easier to deal with than real people. can't deny that. Then don't. Books are easier to deal with than people. You shouldn't feel the same for thinking that way. I know you're trying to make me feel better, but those words don't hold much weight when they're spoken by you, of all people. At any rate, it seems like you'll find the information you seek this time far more easy by asking. How about it? While I don't know if I'll be able to answer all your questions, I should be of some help. Thanks for the offer. I don't really have any specific questions I feel the need to ask right now. I'm just trying to learn more about the principal before our next meeting. Oh, yes, you did mention that. Now, that does make me curious. What is a first year student such as yourself doing meeting with the principal? Well, I'd rather not get into specifics of what we've discussed so far, but say no more. I understand. If your discussions are to remain private, then you shouldn't force yourself to give people hints. Doing so will just make them even more curious, don't you think? I chuckle as I think about the gesture I almost made. Just as Drew says, if someone started giving me hints about a secret discussion they were having, I would only find myself becoming even more curious. In a way, telling them nothing next is the next best thing to telling them everything. And since I'm not willing to do the latter, Drew will have to make do with the silence. Thank you for understanding, Drew. Not at all. We all have secrets, Sable. It's the reason why certain things must remain secret. That's worrisome. It's the reason why certain things must remain secret. That's worrisome. Drew? Oh, no, it's nothing. I was just thinking out loud. I'll let you get back to reading now, okay? Okay. Hers off, far less composure and discretion than when she approached. I think she's talking about the underground facilities when she says why things must remain secret. So far, it's only her and Ice Lady that we know have been in the underground facilities. Before long, she has escaped from my field of vision, leaving me alone with my terminal once more. Okay. After reading a few other books, none of which mention the principal, I decide to head outside for more spell casting practice. Just like last time, I take advantage of my solitude, play around as I see fit. This time around, however, I decide against calling forth any summoned creatures, worried that I might cause the students in the underground facilities further grief. Come to think of it, I should have used this opportunity to ask Drew to show me around the underground facilities. I'm curious about what it's like down there, but with no map to guide me, chaperone would definitely be the best. Then again, considering how cold and dark it must be in there right now, perhaps I'd better go over there in the middle of the night. Better not. As I weigh the value of my physical well-being against my thirst for knowledge, I find myself slowly making my way towards the underground facilities. Long before I reach the entrance, cold air has stolen the warmth from my body. Advancing proves difficult, and I'm unsure of whether I ought to continue. Despite my hesitation, I continue moving forward. My skin, now covered in goosebumps, loses its color, as if to offer me one final warning before I proceed. But alas, my curiosity proves to be too great. The moment I pass through the door, the natural chill running through my body intensifies. My hands begin to shake, and before I realize it, I've wrapped my arms around my torso. Unfortunately, my efforts yield no results. Shit, I'd forgotten just how intense and problematic the cold of this place was. Maybe this was a bad idea after all. Before I give up completely, I decide to reach out to the one causing the unnatural drop in the temperature. Facing the darkness before me, I call out, Hera, you're here, right? Do I know you? I breathe a sigh of relief as I hear a response from the darkness before me. Concluding with her response, Hera emerges from the darkness, finally appearing before me. It's me, Sable. I'm Drew's friend, remember? Oh, the first year human. Yes, exactly. So what do you want with me, human? A few things, actually, but first and foremost, could you turn the temperature up a bit? I could, yes. Will you turn the temperature up? Oh, your question was not hypothetical. Of course it wasn't. I could do that. I fail to see why I should. You are cold. Why do you not leave? The surface is more appropriate for warm-blooded creatures such as yourself. That may be so, but I was curious about the underground facilities, so I was hoping to take a look down here. That's it? I nod. That's not a good enough reason for me to cause these dwelling here discomfort. Just remained here, adapt to the cold, leaving behind words as cold as the air around us. Here retreats into the darkness. She clearly wants nothing to do with me. Even if I call out to her once again, I doubt that she will respond. It seems that the only way I'll ever get a tour of the underground facility is by going through Drew after all. Principal's office. As my second week at the academy comes to a close, I waken bright and early to find an unexpected message awaiting me on my terminal. Okay, so second week. So the first day that gravity spell thing happened, sent to the office, got the manual. Second day. Second day wasn't, because was it the third day that he got called to principal's office about that spell, or would that have been the second? It's the manual. I can't remember. So they've jumped ahead at least 5 days? I don't know, because if you just don't count the weekend, it's just like week. So, school days. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna end the episode here. But I like where the story is going. I know there's a lot of different endings to this. So it's nice to see branching paths now. It's almost like you're getting a little hint of what it's gonna be with like the Juro route. Like you're gonna be under the underground facilities, there's that cold chick. And then you got the whole thing with the principal, the whole background and history of man and elf. So far, yeah, I'm not that curious about the past of the principal just yet, but there hasn't been anything to make me like really curious. So I'm gonna end the recording here though. Thanks for watching. I think this is the best spot to choose to stop. So